Now we're going to break down the components of the decision-making process. So let me start by talking about windows of opportunity. The windows of opportunity is that time period in which that your champion, your end user, your economic buyer are much more receptive to your product than they will be at other times. So if you think about a window of opportunity, a very simple one is if I'm selling Christmas ornaments, I'm not going to sell those in July. I'm going to sell those in November and December before Christmas when people are thinking about it. This is incredibly important to understand.
But Will, it seems like almost a cliche. Of course, Christmas is the time to sell Christmas lights. How about some other examples in the consumer space?
Yeah, and so this is the analysis of consumer behavior that people have seen otherwise. And you see this, for instance, at the beginning of a new year, health clubs explode because people do New Year's resolutions and people go to health clubs. So if you're a health club, you are so ready for that, beginning of the year. But again, that's almost cliched. But let me give you another very important one for a business, understanding consumer behavior. And that was a store called Target. And they realized that they wanted to expand their business. They were very strong in housewares, but they wanted to expand into groceries and electronics. But they were having a really hard time doing that because their customer just came to them for housewares. And when they put groceries in there, they realized that their customers wouldn't get groceries from them. Even though it was the same groceries, even at a lesser price, they still went out, got in their car, and they drove to a grocery store and got it. When they wanted to get electronics, even though it was exactly the same electronics here, they went to Best Buy to get it. And what they found out, and they analyzed this, is that there are windows of opportunity that you can get people to change their buying patterns. And those include your first job, because all of a sudden you have money and you can change it. You have less time. You buy a new house. But the most powerful one of all was having a baby. Having a baby. Pregnancy. Pregnancy and that time afterwards, people dramatically changed their buying patterns. And you know that firsthand, correct?
You are rethinking everything.
That's exactly right. And when we had kids, all of a sudden, anything we could do to buy more time, we would think about. So now all of a sudden, the idea of going to Target and getting groceries and electronics and not having to go to 3 different stores is dramatically more exciting to us. And so they had an extremely successful campaign to take advantage of that, understanding that window of opportunity.
These are very helpful examples, but they are from the consumer space. A lot of our students are going to be building B2B ventures.
Yes.
Can we think about windows of opportunity through that lens?
Yes, and there's been a lot of research on consumers and these windows of opportunity, but they very much exist in businesses, and it's very important for people to understand that. At the end of the fiscal year, people often spend a lot of money because they have money in their budget, and if they don't spend it, they lose it, and their budget is taken down last year. I experienced a lot of success in my career understanding that window of opportunity. There's also, in an IT department, if a new manager comes in, new management comes in, they relook at all their existing vendors. If you're not the entrenched vendor, you want to rush in there. If you are the existing vendor, you want to make sure you protect your base. When I worked at IBM, if we saw one company was being taken over by another company, then we would march in there. We saw a window of opportunity to march in to say, look, your current vendor is being taken over by another vendor. Doesn't that worry you? And we would pounce into that window of opportunity to start to sell our products, our comparable products, and they were much more open to that. Another example of this is when a change in management. So when we were selling to their IT department, if you had a new head of the IT department come in, they would relook at all their existing purchases, and you had a chance to get it. Once that person was in there for a while, it was much more difficult. Another example that I had was I worked at a company called Visage, and we were selling identity solutions to people. If there was some sort of security breach or kind of terrorist activity, unfortunately, people were very interested in our product. So you can see these types of things in businesses very much so. The end of the year is end of the quarter is well-known time where people have budget, they want to spend that budget because they lose it the next year. So this concept of window of opportunities is very, very relevant and something that every one of you, the entrepreneurs, should take advantage of.
It looks important because suddenly it can shrink your timeline.
Yeah, that's exactly correct. I mean, when we start mapping our DMP, if we do it outside the window of opportunity, the decision-making process basically can almost be infinite, and it won't be successful. Whereas if we hit a window of opportunity, it might be exactly what we want or even shorter. And this is really, really important.